Hi everyone, this is a video on how to make the best pizza dough I've managed to do. This has been happening since lockdown in the UK, and I've been each week implementing this version. And in this video you're going to see that actually I'm going to use certain ingredients, certain not ingredients, and also look into showing you how good and chewy a nice pizza dough is using a traditional Neapolitan Italian recipe. With one exception, it's a lot less salt. And so rather than using 11 grams of salt for pizza for 2 people, it's going to be using a fraction of that because it's, in my opinion, not needed. So firstly, you're going to need some water, 220 ml of water. In addition to that, you're going to need some salt, but you do not need much. There's a little 5 ml measuring cylinder thing here. And I'm just going to pour in some. So there's not much in there at all. Maybe 2 grams. It's going to go in. Then what you do is, that's it, no more salt's needed. Now making pizza and pizza dough is a bit like making bread. It's a bread thing. You're then going to need some flour. You're going to put this on here. This is where you're going to let your dough rise. Now I'm filming this in the morning, and you're going to put in about 30 odd, 40 grams. So let's just put it in, doesn't matter if it's a bit more. It's 50, that's fine. A bit more than I normally do, but it doesn't make much difference. Turn this off, move it out of the way a bit. All that water is now going to pour into here. Now, and there is going to be some yeast going in there in a moment too. But firstly, all this water is going to go into there. I'll leave it a bit back and I'll show you one in a moment. You're going to mix this up. What you're doing now, you're creating a buffer. You're only putting yeast in later, and yeast and salt don't like each other too much. So what this does, it just helps remove some of that yeast. I said there's some a bit left in here, and that's because this is going to get poured into a bread mixing pan, and that's the way I choose to knead the bread. If you want to knead the dough instead, or the bread or the pizza dough, then what you're going to do is just press on it for about 15 to 30 minutes. I tend to do 2 sessions of 15 minutes. A bit lumpy, but it doesn't matter, all that will disappear. So that is just soaking in. Let's move that out the side. Then what you're going to do, you're going to get your bread pan, which is here. And it might look a bit dirty, I just made some bread on it, that's all. And you're going to chuck this again on your scales. And there are a few crumbs in there, doesn't make much difference. Let's wait for that to reset. And you're going to pour in about 337 is what I go for. So again, about 330, maybe 325. Unfortunately, there's a slight error here because it did not reset. That needs to go back in a second. So, as I said, I'm doing it in the morning, and the reason for doing it in the morning is you're going to have to let this bread rise. And that is because you're going to create gas pockets. Gas pockets are great. What gas pockets do, some flour still in there, so I'm going to go a bit less. So reset that. And we'll put in, say, 300. Now, Tipo 00 is the most common flour that people always write about in their recipes, and it's something that I see lots of people choose to do. And I'll show you. This is Tipo 00. Tipo 00, Italian grade flour, and you get it in Italy. I must admit, I find the taste is not as much, and I also find it doesn't quite have it for me. It's smoother, it's lighter, but it doesn't have that same kind of crunch and chew. So now you've got all your stuff here, that's all going to get poured in. It doesn't all have to come out, as it's all going to go back in here to rise. So now you're going to chuck that in there. You've then got for the yeast, you need a tiny amount. This is dry yeast, you just need to basically cover the bottom. Okay, so if I just cover the bottom there, tip it in, and now I'm going to chuck the remaining yeast that was in here, just to rinse it out a bit. That can get washed up. And then anything that's in here just gets poured into here. I'm now going to lift this on a tripod, so this is all going to go away. I'll keep this in the fridge. Finish with the flour. You need some flour later, but we'll get onto that. And lift this up and carry this over to where the bread maker is, which is here. This gas cooker is being replaced by induction. I'm going to try and hold this up a bit. It's still very hot. and bring in my pan. And as you can see on the setting, it's if you happen to have a setting on here that does it as well, it's at 45 minutes. You do not want it on for 45 minutes. This one in particular, it seems to think it's, well, firstly too hot. What it's going to be doing is going to be spinning for 45 minutes, but 15 minutes is all you're going to need. Once this thing's cooled down, it's only because I'm doing it specially, then it's fine to go. So once it's cooled down, it's going to go on for 15 minutes, and you'll see me do that when I'm able to. Then I'll get back to you. Thanks very much. Okay, so this is now reset. You can now see that this is going to switch to do pizza. And you're doing 45 seconds and you're hitting start. What's going to happen with this is going to start moving it around. And in 15 minutes, you're going to see where it's at. And to let you know in the meantime, I've got some vegetable oil ready, and that's going to be going into the pan where we mixed all the ingredients, particularly just the flour and the water that made the buffer. So as you see, it starts to melt quite nicely, but I'll get back to you in a moment. Right, so this has been 30 left on the timer, so it's been 15 minutes. It's going to stop moving as it kind of rests, so hit stop. Again, you can do it manually, but if you want to, you just choose to do it this way, as it saves you having to do it yourself. Hit start, and for another 15 minutes, you're just going to let this move around. Slightly sticky, and yeah, so there's not much really coming off. All the flour's going to come off too, and yeah, I'll get back to you in 15. Okay, so we've now completed the kneading of the dough. So now this now comes out. And now we're going to be making this into a large dough ball. So let me place this down here, turn the power off for the bread maker, pop this back in the tripod, and you can see what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so here we have this thing here. That is the dough ball. We're going to take out a little bit of flour for our fingers, just a little bit. Put a little bit on the table, not much. So this is the same flour as before. You're going to take this out, and it's stiff and it's fine. It just stays in one piece. As you can see, it's very much as you imagine to be like dough. As you can see, it's not sticking to my fingers. And we're doing just a simple thing. We're taking it apart, pulling it apart, and you can see it's quite stretchy. I'm doing it like that. A little bit of dough stickiness, which again depends on how much water you use. And then you're going to do it again, pull it apart, and back in. So, as you can see, it stays in a nice lump. Then what you do is you're trying to make it into a nice stretched ball on the outside. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull it towards you, like that. A bit more flour. And do it again, and again, and again. And suddenly I can kind of stretch this into a nice outer surface. Like that. As you can see, it's like a big dumpling. Just pinch and twist it a bit. And now you're going to come back to using your bowl. So, you can use vegetable oil, you can use sunflower oil, and you can use olive oil. The reason I go for vegetable or sunflower is it's a bit less overpowering in flavour. You're then going to do this, and you're going to roll it in here, and plonk it this way up. This way, you're sealing it in. You're then going to take this lid, place it on top, close it, and then leave it for 2 hours. Speak to you later. Okay, so this has been in here for 2 hours. I set a timer. Inside, you see it has risen a little bit. What you're going to do now is you're going to cut this in half. So this is a butter knife. It is a ceramic butter knife. And you can use anything you like, but basically down the middle, as one person is going to be getting one of these dough balls. A little bit of warmth to this, just from the yeast. Okay. And it slices very nicely into 2 pieces. So one's there, there's the other one. You won't need the knife anymore. And now you're going to do what you did earlier, so it's still nice and oily. You're just going to be pulling it apart, putting it together again, pulling it apart, back together again, and making that shape again. You can do that with the other ball. You're going to put the lid back on, and then you're going to set a timer for 4 to 6 hours. Personally, I prefer it for about 6 hours. I have tried it at 24 hours, 48 hours, and 72 hours, but you find that it gets extremely aerated, very much like a web-like structure, like a matrix. And actually, it's not as tasty. It's kind of almost falling apart. It is measurable, but it's all right. So you put them back in, as you can see, easy to play with. Chuck them in, put the lid on 4 to 6 hours. And today, I'm going to do this for about 5.5 hours. So there we are. I'll see you later. So it's been 5.5 hours. We're now getting out our trays. I'll be showing you what's inside here in a moment. I just want a bit of oil. So again, same oil that you use for keeping that nice moist dough ball or dough balls. And you don't need much at all. You can do frying pan pizza. So you get one of these non-stick trays. This is actually very thin. This is mainly designed just for people who don't have any fancy pizza baking stuff. And if you're doing the frying pan pizza, which I have done, it is very nice. It's a bit like a naan bread or something like that. You're just going to take your pan without any oil and you're going to it straight. You're going to heat this very hot pan over a hob. And then you're going to take the dough, put it right on top, and lay your pizza dough on there and leave it on there for a few minutes. You're then going to make your pizza dough, make your base, put that on top as well, and choose to put on whatever toppings you like. And then finally, put it under a very hot oven or very hot grill. And what you're going to be doing there is cooking the top half. So that's how you do it. So we've got all this in place. You can use breadcrumbs or something like that, like you might have seen some of the places like Domino's, and just scatter these on. It stops it from sticking. So let's do this other one, which is just kind of out of shot. As you can see, I've left this flour from this morning for when I was rolling out the dough. So these dough balls are going to be a bit bigger. So again, 5.5, 6 hours is great. A bit longer, and to be honest, you're going to be pretty hungry or having to start that very early in the day. So once you've got and you're happy with the amount of breadcrumbs, you don't need to use too many. They're just going to fall off. That can then go away. And let's now look at these dough balls. So you're going to need some flour. You're going to get your flour out again. Again, I said don't use Tipo 00. You can. It's very expensive. It's over twice the price. You want strong white flour, strong white bread flour. See the strong, the word bread in it? The reason you want that is it has more gluten, it won't cut itself up and expand the way this is done. It hasn't risen too much, to be honest. I think it's just because it's been a very cold kitchen today, but it's still going to be effective. So the good news about that is actually they stay quite nice. So now you're going to put your hand in, put a bit of flour on top, and you want to need a bit more, and press down. More flour. Just going to press down. Now, do not use a rolling pin. Rolling pin will compress and pop all the bubbles inside. So put this flour on there, and with one hand, go around it. As you can see, it's staying very round. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Doesn't matter. It still tastes fantastic. You start seeing there's some bubbles starting to pop as well. You can pop those bubbles. You can leave them in. I tend to leave them in. It does mean they can burn a bit because now they're very thin. What I'm doing is I'm pressing in the centre and leaving that outer rim. That is because that's how you get the nice big crust. I'll use both hands just a little bit. It is awkward doing this. And then what I'm doing is just letting it slowly just expand. You can use your fingertips, you can use your knuckles, you can stretch it a bit. And eventually it's going to get thinner and thinner until it's going to pretty much cover all of that pan. Doesn't take very long, but I don't like to rush it. If it does make a hole in it, don't worry. You can sort of pinch it together if you need to. And like I said, I do this once a week, have pizza once a week. Which isn't too unhealthy. Again, I've chosen to use not much salt. And this is enough for one person. Tend to eat it one hit. You can reheat it. Tastes good reheated. It's not too good cold, this particular style. As you can see, it's getting very flappy. It is stronger and more elastic than you might think it to be. You can hold up to the light, you can look through it, and it should be translucent. So, just keep going a bit more. Again, don't crush that edge, that outer edge. Just keep an eye on it. If you do hear that noise, it's because I put the oven on. So you want it as hot as possible. Pizza ovens around 400, 500 degrees Celsius. However, this oven only goes up to about 250, and normally, even if it's been on for 55 minutes, it's still only gone up to about 150 or something. Doesn't matter, as you'll see, it'll make nice, crispy, crunchy pizza. So these videos are all being put together into one. Hopefully they'll all work. And it's kind of big enough now. As you sort of carry it across, you'll see it can get a bit bigger. Nice and flappy. The thinner the better, because it is going to raise up. Again, I'm not advertising this brand of bread flour or anything like that. It's just what I'm using. It's relatively cheap, one of the cheaper ones, but very tasty, chewy, nutty thing. Right, I think that's going to be big enough now. Won't do the other one for now, just to show you, but you can just press it in slightly, again, not touching that outer edge. Don't worry about that, it will raise. You can see it's kind of black in places, so you can see it's thin enough. Then I'm also going to take some puree, which I'll do in the next video. Thanks very much. Okay, so this is the other base. That's now done. Next thing, puree. You're going to need a set of weighing scales, which hopefully is going to be in shots to show you what I'm weighing. You're going to need about 80 grams of puree. So just need to reset that. Double concentrate puree, very good for you, very good for your vision. I've managed to increase my vision from 20/20 vision to 30/30, or 19 out of 20 vision to 30/30, and that's through the lycopene effects that you can actually get. It's any form of tomato I actually like, and it is the healthiest, as the lycopene is released from the tinning effect of tomatoes. Today's 2 grams, I'm going to put in some water. I said roughly just over half the amount. So I need about 50 grams of water. That's 30. There we go. That's enough. Could be a bit less, could be a bit more. Maybe slightly more. Okay, so let's move this out of the way again. Now what you're going to need is a fork. And you're just going to mix it up slightly. Now you can add herbs. What I tend to do actually is adding herbs before, well at this stage. So cinnamon and black pepper, they are very good combinations together. Paprika, adding in also thyme, oregano, basil, anything you like, rosemary, and yeah, you keep mixing it in. Chili flakes, got some other stuff too. So it looks runny, but being that double concentration, this does start to firm up again. That's very good for spreading thinly onto your pizza base. Too thick and it's like a sauce. It's just going to be more like literally like a pie. Obviously, they call them pizza pies over in Chicago. I have been to the place where they were founded, but that is there or thereabouts good enough. So now you're going to take the trays, a nice lovely puree smell, dollop on about half of that stuff. Spread it. I personally like going up onto the crusts, as you have a nice kind of flavour throughout the crusts as well. A spoon normally is better. I'm just starting off with a fork. Let's go for a soup spoon, nice rounded down there. As you can see lots of that layering still being present. There's a bit more. About 85 grams of puree to about 30 grams, 50 grams of water for 2 pizzas. So there we are. That's one of them done. So you know on both, you're then going to add your spices. So I'm going to add numerous spices now. I'm going to add some black pepper. Quite a lot of that. Some basil, which is dried basil. And you can use fresh if you want. And I've used way too much in this instance. It's tipped out. This is why people have a life career in broadcasting. It'll be tasty. I'll add some chili flakes. And I've got mild. Some thyme. Thyme goes on now. And just a little bit of thyme. Garlic granules and ginger I'm going to leave. Got some turmeric, chuck some of that on too. There's the paprika, let's chuck some of that on. Got some oregano. Chuck that on too. And now for the fun stuff. We've got some very spicy chili stuff that you just flick on there now and again. It's like harissa. Might use a bit more. And then finally, if you wish, based on what some people have done, you could add in some barbecue sauce. Got some stuff to use up. So anything you like, just try whatever base you like. It's obviously pretty sacrilege doing something like this. And I've got a different barbecue sauce, so let's try that out as well. Just use some bits up. Okay, smear it around as part of the base. Now putting on your other ingredients. So we need some mozzarella to be chopped up. That needs draining. You want to use Italian, probably buffalo mozzarella. A couple of slices of dry cured ham. Dry cured with a bit of fat, but not too much. Add some lovely oils that will seep out. This is actually 16-month mature. I'll add the rest of the toppings afterwards, but sprinkle them on. 1.5 slices is ideal. You don't want too much more than that. I don't recommend Serrano. It's a bit too dry. Prosciutto is very nice. So add some of that on there too. You can add on the cheeses next. You can add the cheese first if you like. And the next thing I'll be doing is I'll be taking it out of the oven, which will be in 15 minutes once I've put the rest of the toppings on. All right, add on some mozzarella in small lumps, and then some cheddar as well, just crumbled on as well. Okay, so here it is. Some of you will hate it because it's got pineapple on it as an example, but it's nutritious, it's interesting, it's vitamin C, that's a lot of complexity with it. And as that crust, you can hear that it's crushing down. So very nice chewy base. So as you can see, it's not burnt, it's just has a nice taste to it too as well. Thanks very much, enjoy that. All the best. Bye for now.